Hey everybody, welcome to Workforce Gaming. I am Brad, here with Doug.
Hi.
Over the past few weeks, we have both put a ton of time into what is, for some reason or another, one of the best VR games that exists, and that is
Yes,
Astrobot Rescue Mission.
it is. Yes.
This kind of came from a few tech demos and things like that, where Astrobot's slowly been making his way into PlayStation culture, and now all of a sudden he gets his own game. And I thought literally nothing of this game. And then Doug said, "Hey, I bought this because I think Astrobot's cool and it's amazing." And then spent like 3 or 4 days, I think, just trying to convince me about how great this game was.
Yeah.
And then I finally broke down and bought it. So I guess to start with, what makes Astrobot so great? Because it is literally just a platformer that you're playing in VR, and not a particularly overly amazing platform by any standards of basic platforming. But what sets this game apart?
I think the thing that's like kind of interesting about Astrobot is I think it is like a fairly good platformer. I think the thing that it does really, really well though with like the platforming genre in general is that it because the VR stuff, it does a lot of things that I've never seen in a platform before, especially with like the level design. Because your camera is basically centered on your body, your little Astrobot doesn't just like run in front of you, but he can run up behind you and to your left and to your right. So it's basically the entire level is centered around you as a person. So the character is kind of like because the character is running in and around you, and in front of you, below you, above you, and stuff like that. It's this weird sort of camera angle that kind of dictates the level design. And what it ends up doing ends up creating like a super super unique platformer just in general. So it's like all these kind of cool new ideas that I think that I've never seen a platform before. But then it's also done like really really well with like the talent of like you would expect something of like a Mario game or something like that. So I think the two like big surprise of it is like one, it's really cool, interesting level design that seems brand new, and all this brand new stuff is done with some sort of like level of care that I just like just wasn't expecting at all. Like I just wasn't expecting to be a good game. I was expecting to be a decent VR game, but it's also a good game on top of that.
Yeah, because it's a solid platformer, and I think if you took the
Yeah,
VR out, it would still be like, okay, that's a pretty cool game. But like
yeah,
you said, that camera perspective, because you are in the world, you're this robot following around Astrobot, and
yeah,
just you get this feeling almost every single time you start a new level. My first instinct became by about halfway through the game was look behind me, because you
yeah.
always have these weird things, and there's other little Astrobots kind of hidden around the world to try and collect, and they're always hidden in these weird places, and a lot of times you do have to look behind you, look below you, look up to find them, and it just completely changes your mindset about what you're doing in this world, because you're
Mhm.
in the world, you're a part of the world, you're not just looking at the world like you would in a Mario game, where you're, okay, I'm right behind Mario, and that camera perspective when the level starts is the same, but because you have this 360-degree view around you, that level is around you, and it's just such a cool feeling to have that when you start a level.
Yeah, I think that actually the looking at the round is kind of like it's like a weird form of exploration.
Yeah,
Like in exploring a game, like you're trying to get into every nook and cranny, but this one is like you're trying to peer into every nook and cranny. It's like it's really strange because the levels are inherently linear, but there is this sort of weird exploration aspect on the part of the player in which you need to be carefully looking around, like, and you get not only for the little Astrobot guys you're supposed to rescue, but also these cool like little challenge chameleons. They're actually pretty well hidden. You have to like listen through your 3D audio to try to figure out where it is. I think it's really cool because it feels like it's designed like you would think a linear platforming is, but it has this interesting and that thing you were talking about looking around exploration aspect that you'd expect out of a more like non-linear
yeah.
platformer or just any non-linear game in general, which I really enjoyed. One of the things I actually really enjoyed too is a little. I think the tone and the setting of the game is really interesting for VR. Well, not interesting for VR, but it's just a happy place to be in compared to most VR games I'm used to, which are
Yeah.
like dark and mysterious and spooky.
Horror, this is going to jump in front of you, and it's going to be so
Yeah.
realistic and crazy.
Yeah, this is just like sunshine and rainbows like most of the entire time,
Yeah.
and it's just like it's like a feel good game. It's a game like you want to look in, you want to explore. It's like you want to peer through the next thing that you're not like afraid to go through that door. You're like, no, I want to see what's behind that next door, sort of aspect of it. And I really really enjoyed that, just like the overall tone of it. I think people might think it's like a kids game, but I don't think it's really a kids game. I don't know. Like, how do you feel about the tone of it overall? Because it is very childish, but not like immature. Does that make sense?
It's Mario. It's the same thing you get with Mario,
That's
where
true.
like And I think that's most of these platformers where it does, looking at it, you get that feeling, but there is more to it. And I think that tone
Mhm.
and setting, like you said, I think that helps this game immensely. And I think part of the reason it works so well on VR is because most of the experiences in VR are supposed to be so like emotionally draining, whether it's a horror game or really putting you in the mindset of something. Like I always go back to Batman, like you are Batman.
Yeah.
You are in this right now. And this is just like, no, just hang out in this world. And it almost like invites you in, where I feel like most VR
Mhm.
is like, how long can you stand to see this? Like that's always my thought with Resident Evil 7 is like, how
Yeah.
long can you play this in VR before you're like, nope, nope, I'm done. I'm going back to normal.
Exactly 30 seconds is mine.
About an hour or two, and I was like, no, I like this better because you I feel like those kind of almost try to push you out and like are like, we're gonna put a time limit on this because this is intense. We're gonna make
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Whereas this is just like, no, just hang out, like walk around, see what you can see, and I think that tone again just really helps it become this VR experience that's so unlike anything else.
Yeah.
Even though it's just, you know what, this is just a good game that we introduced a VR mechanic to and a VR perspective to that completely revolutionizes the way that you play this game.
Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting because we haven't made any like direct comparisons to other platformers, but I think to bring Mario Odyssey into the conversation, it's like Mario Odyssey to me is like the perfection of the 3D platformer. And while Astrobot isn't as good as that necessarily, it definitely feels like a totally like huge step forward compared to Mario Odyssey. Like to me, like Mario Odyssey was like things I've already done. I mean, there's definitely some cool mechanics in there, but this one just feels like it's like a whole other like step forward that I would love to see more and more games in.
Yeah,
Um,
I
yeah,
think like you said, Mario Odyssey was the culmination of what I thought a platformer could be. Where if
yeah,
I said if you're going to make the next platformer, you would have all of these things in there, and Mario Odyssey does that. This is the amazing platformer that I never knew I wanted. I
yeah,
never knew
yeah,
I wanted something like this until you play it, and I think that's going to be kind of the uphill climb this game has is that it you can't understand this game until you try it. You really can't, just because so much of it is based
yeah.
on that feel, based on that perspective. In Mario Odyssey, you can look and go, that looks like the best platform that's ever been made. This looks like, okay, somebody made a little robot platformer, great. But they're two different things. Mario Odyssey is going for that perfection. This is going for just let's go crazy and try some new stuff.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting, like even knowing what it's like to play the game. Like when I watch my girlfriend play it, like just watching on TV, it's like this game looks like it sucks.
And that was what
Like
took.
even knowing that, I'm still like watching, like this is not a good. Is this a good game? I don't know. But when you put it on, it's like okay, no, actually, no, this is actually an amazing game.
And that's what took me so long to get into this is because you sat there and were like, no, this is amazing. And I'd pull up a trailer and be like, really? What's wrong with you? This is not no. This is not the next
Yeah,
amazing game I need to play. Leave me alone. Let me play something better. And it is all experience with this game. And I think that's VR to a point, but I think this game just
yeah.
encapsulates that so much.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's for sure. I think the thing that I really like about, especially with the perspective and like the VR aspect to it, I think the thing that adds to it, I think the way to describe this game is the VR aspect, is that if you're like a little kid, if you remember as like a little kid and you play with action figures, and in order to play with action figures, you basically the whatever thing you had around you was the landscape. So like you put your action figure on the table and that's now a mountain and like you're hopping your little action figure around and he's fighting bad guys and stuff like that. It's sort of that kind of atmosphere. You had this like little 4-inch robot character who kind of about the size of an action figure running around your environment. And I just like it felt like very childish in like a really fun way of like it felt like that sort of imagination that you would have as a kid playing with these toys, but it's like an actual alive toy. And I really, really love that aspect um, of it. I really want an Astrobot figure, like really bad.
if
Like a
only
hundred.
if only it was a Nintendo game because you know there'd be like six amiibos.
Exactly. The one thing I actually do want to talk about real quick is the I think the difficulty is really good.
Hmm.
I expect this game to be actually like kind of easy, and then just kind of call it a day because like I think with like any sort of like just looking at it, looks like okay childish platformer sort of thing, but it's actually like it's not difficult, but it's definitely not easy. And I really, really appreciate that. It kept me interested throughout like the entire game because as you're learning new mechanics, you're learning new things. Like this is actually kind of challenging. I don't know if that's you felt similar.
I feel like it had a good curve because I think the first couple lessons or the first couple of levels, I was sitting there going, okay, yep, I don't know if this is going to hold my interest. And then as it adds in those new mechanics, and as you kind of, the game kind of slowly I think understands that it's going to take you a second to figure out like,
Hmm.
okay, I have to look around, like I have to do these different things. And I think it kind
Yeah.
of builds all that in because I think the first level, even going back and playing it later, you play it a little bit differently than you did the first time through because you now have a
Yeah.
understanding of the game. So I don't even necessarily know if difficult's the right word, although a couple of the levels in the last world did trip me up a few times.
Yeah.
But I think it's more just the understanding of what this game is and how it works.
Yeah. No, that's that. Yeah, that's a good point because I think that sort of like exploration with your head is a weird thing to wrap your head around.
Yeah,
Like the first time you
for
play it,
sure.
but I think the first time your character is like behind you, you need to like look behind you, like oh wait, I can look behind me. Oh wait, I can look above me. Oh wait, I can look way below me.
Yeah,
Um, I think that's getting in that mindset is that's like it's once you go yeah you kind of you look at the levels in a new way. I think you're totally right about that.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I do think this is definitely that VR game that should be selling VRs. Like if you
Yeah.
play this, like this is the justification for VR is seeing that, this is what games can go, and this is what if we get away from the kind of gimmicky VR, I think this is what VR is ultimately going to end up really trying to push is this new perspective on the standard
Hmm.
genres of games that we've gotten so used to. So I'm excited to see what we do when we get a RPG game in here, when we get a shooter in here, when we get those types of things that are going, okay, now instead of just trying to either A, straight copy a game that already happened, or
Hmm.
B, going, you're Batman, you're this guy in this horror universe, just being able to kind of take a new spin on some of these classic genres. I think that's where this game kind of leads me to at the end is just going like, whoa, I want to see somebody do this with these other different types of games.
Yeah. It's there's a lot of new ideas that people haven't explored yet, and this is games like, hey, there's cool new ideas out there. Let's try some stuff.
Let's stop copying everybody and just make something new and it'll work out well.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we are Workforce Gaming. You can follow us on Twitter at Workforce Games or subscribe to us on YouTube. We will see you later.
Bye.